Selection season is nearing its end, and we have unprecedented chaos in the DBNI standings. 4 league champions have been crowned, and a new world champion has been added to the history books. Never before has the world of diplomacy seen this level of competition. Only one event remains before our final top 28 players are etched in stone. Put on your safety goggles and tape your socks to your ankles because this is the DBNI Countdown Show.
Welcome to the January 2022 edition of the DBNI Countdown Show. I'm your host, Brian Pravel, co-founder of the Diplomacy Broadcast Network and the man voted least likely to come off mute. I'm joined by my co-host, fellow DBN co-founder and proud commissioner of the Virtual Diplomacy League, Zachary Moore. Zach, I know I normally start the show by giving you a hard time about something, but I'm going to mix it up a little bit today. You've worked really hard this season, and I am genuinely impressed with the success that you've had in the Virtual Diplomacy League this season. I had the honor of hosting DBN's coverage of the championship game. It was one of the best games of diplomacy I've ever seen. I can't think of a more fitting conclusion to the end of this VDL season. Congratulations.
Appreciate that, Brian. And listen, you and I have talked a lot this year about when the gloves are going to come off, and boy, did they come off in that game. Tremendous skill on display from start to finish, and just enough of those head-scratching mistakes to remind us that you'll never perfect your craft in diplomacy. There will always be weaknesses to iron out.
And that's one of the things that makes this game so great. If you miss the VDL Championship game, do yourself a favor and watch it after this broadcast. You can find it right here on the DBN YouTube channel, and you'll also want to keep an eye out for the virtual Cascadia event. As the final event of the 2021 season, we expect competition to be fierce. The fact that this event is now virtual could have some huge ramifications for some of our competitors. We'll talk about that a little bit more later in the show. So in addition to the Virtual Diplomacy League Championship game, we've added the scores from the Tour of Britain, the Nexus Press League, and the French Virtual Diplomacy League. Not only did the addition of these points shake up all of our standings, they were also very large events, and that reduced the points values of several of our existing events. The result, Zach, in one word, chaos. Before we see our updated standings, let's take a look at who earned an automatic invitation to February's Diplomacy Broadcast Network Invitational.
That sounds like a great idea, Brian. And as you know by now, anyone who wins a qualifying event that has at least 9 boards and 28 unique players and plays in at least 2 virtual face-to-face games during the season and is eligible to play on the VWDC server when this thing begins will receive an automatic invitation. So far, there have been 17 DBNI events in the 2021 season, 11 of which have been large enough to qualify for an automatic invitation. Coming onto the screen right now, we have the winners of automatic qualifying events in the face-to-face and virtual face-to-face spheres. Nicholas Sahuge's win of the 2021 Virtual Diplomacy Championship earned him a second world champion title and, perhaps more importantly, Brian, an automatic invitation to February's DBNI. And coming up, Virtual Cascadia is the last event of the 2021 DBNI season. So if it meets the required number of boards, then that winner will receive this season's final automatic invitation.
In the extended deadline category, the Nexus Press League finished its inaugural season with Evan Swihart claiming the win and receiving an automatic invitation. And it was a huge month for league play. In addition to her existing invitation from the VWDC Summer Classic win, Saren Kwok received a second invitation for the Tour of Britain as well. Brandon Fogel received an invite for his win of the VDL regular season. Vincent Roulet received an invite for winning the French Diplomacy League, and Nicolas Taillet received an invite for winning the VDL Championship.
Now, with Saren Kwok winning 2 DBNI automatic qualifying events and Adam Silverman not yet meeting the eligibility requirements of playing 2 virtual games, we've got 10 players who have been offered auto bids so far this season. There's a chance that 2 more invitations could be offered. If Virtual Cascadia is large enough, that winner will receive an invite. And additionally, because it's being held virtually, our guy Adam Silverman could get off his butt and become eligible by playing 2 virtual games at that tournament.
With 10 to 12 automatic invitations being offered this season, players without an invitation are competing for just 16 to 18-ish spots. So keep that in mind when we're looking at our standings. This month, we've highlighted players who've received an automatic invitation by placing an award icon next to their names in the standings. Zach, let's take a look at those standings now.
I cannot wait to take a look at these standings, Bryan, starting with number 1. No surprise to anyone, Serendipity Kwok found herself in the right place but the wrong time, qualifying for the VDL top board, yet declining the invite so she could spend that time doing something that actually challenges her. If you rule Britain, you rule the world, so it should surprise nobody that the Tour of Britain champion finds herself atop the DBNI rankings.
Well, he may not seem nervous and clearly knows what his worth is, but under the surface, pressure has been building all season long for Kartik Tik Tik Konath. His 5th place finish in the Virtual Diplomacy League added just enough points to keep him in 2nd place, but not enough to keep Saren Kwok from moving into 1st. Was this the straw in the stack that breaks the camel's back, or will Karthik be able to hold on just a little longer?
Coming in at 3rd, Nicolas Sahujet cleared his throat at Carnage before making a statement the following month at the Virtual Diplomacy Classic, winning the largest virtual tournament of the year and guaranteeing himself a spot in the big dance, where he will be one of the favorites to win the whole thing.
Evan Swihart defeated 103 other players, including yours truly, to win the 2nd largest extended deadline event of the season and add to his 5th place score at DixieCon and 4th place score at the Boston Massacre to move up 14 places into 4th place.
Well, if you know Farron Jane, you know that she's no stranger to either the Paris method or the why is he in Paris method, as she demonstrated yet again on the VDC top board. Her strong result at that event secured her place in the top 28, and her history suggests she'll find herself in our Super 7, where she will look to change a few narratives.
Nicolas Taillet is one of 5 newly eligible players to add their score to the DBNI with his win of the largest event in the Virtual Leagues category. Don't sleep on this rookie. Anyone who's been watching Nicola's performance in the VDL this year will tell you that this win was not a fluke. Nicola may be a popular dark horse pick to win this season's DBNI.
From a rookie to an old hand, Jason Massbaum said just enough prayers on a Saturday in December to make it through VDL's pearly gates. But no amount of Hail Marys could redeem his gluttony for Balkan supply centers in the eyes of our blessed Pope, Brandon Fogel, during the top board. And he finds himself firmly on the fringes of DBNI's Heavenly 7.
Looking now at places 8 to 14, Matthew Krill spent the last few months making custom diplomacy board tops and trophies instead of winning them. But his slot in the DBNI is a virtual lock, so we'll likely be watching this member of the 2021 Super 7 play again in February.
Well, our favorite newcomer, cousin Greg Matthews, is new to the DBNI family, but he shredded any evidence of competition and cruised through Nexus Season 6 to earn himself a seat at this prestigious table. One of the most dominant players in extended deadline play looks to conquer another domain.
After narrowly being edged out of the VDL Championship game, Ed Sullivan joined DBN as an analyst, stating, "Those who can't compete, commentate." Probably won't hear Ed Sullivan during the 2022 DBNI because the points from his 5th place result at the Virtual World Championship means he will almost certainly be competing in the DBNI.
And the VDL Teacher of the Year, Johnny Gillum, had a nice result at DixieCon, but it was his work on the keyboard that's got him sitting at number 11, thanks to a second place position in Nexus Press League. Johnny has a sharp knife, and he's not afraid to use it, especially on you, dear listener.
With big scores from the EDC and CDF, plus his win of the largest European tournament of the 2021 season, the CDFV, world champion Cyril Savant has been one of the most dominant European players this season. Cyril accepts his invitation to play in the DBNI. He'll likely be considered one of the favorites.
Vincent Relay found himself firmly on the bubble before winning the French Diplomacy League while playing none other than France. As the second highest ranking non-Nicolas French player in the DBNI, he's got to be a dark horse to win this whole thing.
It's a sign of the strength of the competition this season that Mikarlis Kamaridis could add points from his third place finish at the VDL and fifth place finish at the Tour of Britain and still drop 4 places overall into 14th. Mikarlis shouldn't worry too much. His consistent play throughout the season almost certainly earned him enough points to qualify for the DBNI, and we might see him moving on to the Grand Final.
Well, let's turn this page on to places 15 through 21. And at 15th, it's Emmanuel de Pontevice, picking up a pair of silver medals in French play this year, placing second in both the Virtual French Championship and the Virtual French Diplomacy League. His seat at the table is likely secure, but his lack of international experience may come back to bite him.
One of the leaders early in the season, Katie Gray, has been unable to play as much diplomacy over the past few months. Fortunately for her, the additional points from her 6th place finish at the Tour of Britain will likely be enough to earn Katie a spot in this year's DBNI.
And number 17, Riaz Virani, has no shortage of experience in the face-to-face and the virtual worlds, but in 2021 he did his work in the extended deadline sphere, placing 3rd in Nexus Season 6. After making only the minimum virtual appearances necessary to qualify for this event, he'll have to either shake off the dust or get dusted in February.
Brandon Fogel's play as Italy during the Virtual Diplomacy League Championship game ended with him finishing in 2nd place overall and a DBNI debut of 18th place. Perhaps Brandon should go back and watch Peter McNamara's play during the 2021 DBNI Grand Finals to learn how an expert plays Italy on a top board before accepting his automatic invitation to the DBNI.
And the 2021 Alpha Weasel, Russ Dennis, is tumbling down the standings after winning Weasel Newt this autumn. He's got some decent supplementary scores from BDC and Summer Classic, but if he doesn't add any more points, he's in danger of going from champion to chopping block over the course of just a few months.
And in 20th place, Liam Stokes' 3rd place finish at the largest virtual diplomacy event of the season could not have come at a better time. This moves Liam up 4 places. I predict Liam will end up near the cut line, but these new points will likely earn him an invitation to the DBNI.
And rounding out the top 21, Ben Kelman plays the game of diplomacy with a certain youthful exuberance, which is to say he can't stop himself from running toward bubbles every time he gets the chance. His 2nd place finish at Carnage has kept him in the mix, but with Cascadia results yet to be finalized, his status is very much in jeopardy.
On to positions 22 to 28, our final positions before the cut line. Christophe Borges' 3rd place finish in the French Diplomacy League earned him just enough points to move up 1 place into 22nd. Christophe has consistently impressed all season. I predict he has done exactly enough to receive an invitation.
Well, Brian, Brioche isn't the only Thibaut that refuses to do anything more than French, and he's done well enough in limited appearances to put himself in the mix But if you want to tie the knot with DBNI, you need to be willing to score, and without another result, he might just be left at the altar.
And early season leader Wes Ketchum did not play any games during selection season and will need a top 5 finish at Cascadia to guarantee a spot at the DBNI. He has a chance to qualify without playing, but choosing not to play means leaving his fate in the hands of other players carrying a knife.
Well, speaking of players holding a knife, Brian, a breakout performance at VDC has Noam Brown surging into the top 28, but he'll need to follow it up with a pile of points at Cascadia if he wants his season to extend into February.
Tom DeGrief enters the DBNI with a 3rd place finish at the Tour of Britain and a top 7 finish at the VDL. I believe Tom's score may end up being the cut line for the 2021 season. If Tom does not add points from Cascadia, I predict that his position could be overtaken.
And Jamal Blackerly started off the season with a bang at PoppyCon, but has sputtered to the finish line with a slew of underwhelming results. A well-regarded player in an Australian hobby with a rich history, I just hope he doesn't get stuck down under the top 28.
And in perhaps the biggest story of the month, 2021 Diplomat of the Year Peter McNamara has weaseled his way into the top 28. Peter's struggled to find success this season. His best scores come from a 6th place finish at the BWDC and a top 10 finish in the Nexus Season 6 extended deadline competition. Sitting with this amount of points, Peter's invitation to the DBNI is extremely vulnerable. But thanks to Cascadia going virtual, Peter has an unexpected opportunity to play another event. This is great news for Peter and terrifying news for the rest of the top 28.
Well, I would not want to have the neck that Peter McNamara is breathing down, Brian. Speaking of breathing down necks, here are places 29 through 35, the players on the bubble. Sasha Massacard, Timothy Crosby, Ruben Sanchez, Christopher Ward, Sabi Ahuja, Tommy Anderson, Nicolas Constantine. Brian, these bottom 3 players are separated by less than a point. This entire group is separated by less than 6 points, and they are knocking on the door. Cascadia is around the corner. You can't count them out, but the odds are stacked against them.
And here are the players in 36th to 42nd. It is desperation time for this group of players. Most likely nothing less than a top 2 finish at Cascadia will let them play in February. We've got Eskil Sandblom, Christian Brown, Andre Gribikoff, John Jameson, Hunter Ketcher, Robert Shoup, and Dave Roberts.
Now, after all these shakeups, 7 players were knocked out of the DBNI top 28 and 7 new players took their place. Here is where we ended up.
Timothy Crosby dropped from 19th to 30th. Sasha Massacard from 20th to 29th. Tommy Anderson, 21st down to 34th. Sabi Ahuja, 22nd to 33rd. Andre Gribikoff, one of our Super 7 from the 2021 DBNI, 26th to 38th. Christian Brown from 27th to 37th, and John Jameson, our former Bubble Watch player, drops from 28th to 39th.
And in the right column, it's a slew of debuts. Nicolas Talley enters the rankings at 6th. Greg Matthews busts down the door at 9th. Riaz Virani shows up at 17th. Brandon Fogel in 18th. Noam Brown slides from 34th to 25th. That'll be exciting. Tom DeGrief makes his first appearance at the 26th spot. And guess who? Peter McNamara jumps just 4 spots from 32nd to that final 28th spot on the list.
Zach, this is the 3rd show in a row where the line separating those who currently qualify for the DBNI and those who do not is just 1 point. At most events, just one more center and one single game could be the difference between watching and participating in this season's DBNI. It's difficult to predict exactly how many points will be needed to qualify for the DBNI because points can be adjusted based on the size of other events. but I suspect players are going to need somewhere around 40-ish points to qualify. I don't think I'd feel entirely safe with anything less than 48 points.
Coming onto the screen now, we're going to show our top players without the qualifying 2 virtual face-to-face games. The DBNI is not the best environment to experience virtual play for the first time, so to qualify, you must have at least 2 virtual games under your belt this season. And most of these players here are in position to qualify for the DBNI if only they met this requirement. So the pressure is on them to meet that quota by Cascadia. It's Adam Silverman, it's Renee Van Rooyen, Sergei Saragin, Alex Lebedev, Marijan Orsulik, Nigau, I don't know, press player, Philip Bass at 22.9. Listen, with maybe the exception of Philip, these are all players who are right there and who, if they played Cascadia, would meet the requirement and probably get the points that they need. So this could be a source of major shakeups.
Yeah, and every single one of them could influence our Super 7. Let's take a look at the 2021 Super 7, how they did this season. Man, winning is hard, but staying at the top is even harder. Most of last year's Super 7 did not start out very hot, but several players are making late season moves. Take a look at how they're doing. Nicolas Sahuguet has moved up to 3rd place, moving up 13 places. Farron Jane moves up 3 places into 5th. Matthew Krill sits comfortably at 8th. Russ Dennis has dropped 8 places into 19th. And the story of the month, Peter McNamara, making his way into the DBNI top 28, moving up 4 spaces, but just barely. And Andrei Gribikov loses 12 places, drops into 38th place, is definitely at risk of not qualifying for this season's DBNI. And Marcus Zylstra has been perfecting his new role as a sideline reporter.
That's very nice of you, Marcus. And Brian, this is a fascinating spot for both Russ and Peter for very different reasons. Russ won that tournament, Weasel Moot, in September. You think, okay, he's a lock, right? But now all of a sudden he's tumbling down the season and could be maybe the only tournament champion not to qualify if things don't break his way for this next month. And Peter McNamara, a lock for a very different reason because of his name, has been trending the right direction, but he still has not done enough. And you know it's only 2 rounds at Cascadia. Anybody can have 2 bad rounds. He needs 2 good ones.
And it's time for Bubble Watch. This is the part of the show where we go head-to-head making predictions about who will make it into the top 28. Let's take a look at how we did last month.
Do we have to, Brian? I think we should maybe cut this segment for time or something. I don't know if it works. I don't know if the people like it.
Oh, they love it.
Well, here's something I don't love, Brian. My first prediction was Hunter Catcher, who produced -1 point as he fell off a cliff from 31st to 38th point. Too busy, I don't know, traveling the world, growing out his hair to play diplomacy. My second pick did much better. Tanya Gill with a solid 0 points. She remains ineligible for just kind of not playing, but she did a great job on the sideline with fellow non-player Marcus Zylstra. And rounding out my 3 predictions, it was Craig Mayer, another source of negative points. He drops from 56th to 64th. Thanks a lot, Craig. You're as reliable off the board as you are on the board.
Well, Zach, if you recall, I swung for the fences last month. I made some tremendous risks picking players. Every single one was ineligible. Let's see how I did, if those paid off. And we'll start out with the big win. Greg Matthews did meet the eligibility requirements by playing the 2 virtual games and jumps all the way up into 7th, getting me 3 points. Dave Roberts did not qualify for the DBNI, but did gain eligibility and moves into 42nd place, earning me 1 point. And I also get a point for Eskil Sandblom, who became eligible and moved into 36th points. So I believe that's a total of 5 points. And with your -2, that's a difference of 7. I think that may be the biggest points difference since we've started doing this show.
Almost a suspicious amount, Brian. You would think there's some governing body that needs to look into insider trading at that type of difference.
Well, predictions are not easy, and they're even harder when we only have one game left and neither of us have any idea who's going to be playing. So I'm not a little afraid of a little competition, especially when it's about which of us can be less wrong. That's kind of been my bread and butter all season. So who are your final picks for the 2021 season?
Let me start out with an oldie but a goodie, Christopher Ward. Listen, he probably won't make the top 28. Don't tell him I said that, but I like him as a value pick here. He disappeared during the month of December because he had to deliver presents to elves or snowmen or something. And maybe you forgot about him, Brian. You might have forgot about him, but not me. He's back. He's rested. He's ready to move up the standings.
Zach, this is as good a pick as any. Chris Ward has played in 9 events and a whopping 32 boards this season. He's got the reps. He's been improving all season long. If he can manage playing in the Pacific time zone and let desperation encourage him to make the big move and finally turn some of his opportunities into wins, he could definitely qualify. I like this pick.
If you like that pick, you're going to maybe like this one. Andrei Gribakov. He will need a golden mushroom to come from behind in this one, but he's a sharp player. I don't know if you know, but I know he's a great player, a Harvard grad. You're going to pick against the Ivy League, Brian? Is that what you're about to do?
I am. Andre is a talented player. He came in 4th at last year's Cascadia tournament, so I do understand the pick. I don't think Andre will get points. I don't even know if he's going to end up playing. I think he'll take the University of Chicago route and just be a academic and non-sports team, something like that.
Well, here it is. My final pick of the year. It's Christian Brown. And Brian, don't give me that look, okay? I'm just throwing darts at random Americans and praying that they play in Cascadia. Christian Brown is the longest of long shots. He's buried in the standings, but your best ability is your availability, and I trust Christian to show up.
Well, I can't blame you for playing it safe with this pick, Zach. I just hope you didn't take the wrong lesson from my success this month. There's a difference between a risky pick and a wrong pick. I hope that I'm wrong because Christian Brown is a fellow Weasel. I want him to do well. But someone like perhaps Christopher Ward might sneak their way into the top 28 if enough players are unable to accept their invitation. But dropping all the way down to 37th, Christian's going to need a good chunk of points from Cascadia. I don't like your odds on this one. So for my first pick, I am sticking with Dave Roberts. Dave played last year's Cascadia tournament. I believe he's from the Pacific Northwest. And if I'm right about that, which is questionable, this is basically a home tournament for him, and he could have something of a home field advantage. I know it's risky, but who better to take the smart risk on than a teacher?
Well, Brian, you see a home tournament. I see a stay-at-home tournament. I don't think Dave Roberts is going to show up. He's got papers to grade. Do you understand that? He's got essays to prepare. And Dave Roberts coaches youth basketball, Brian. It's mid-tournament season. You think he's playing diplomacy? I withheld that information from you so you'd make a bad pick.
Zachary Moore with the deep knowledge of our players. For my second pick, I'm going to pick somebody I do legitimately believe has a chance to earn their way into the DBNI, Sabi Ahuja. Sabi only needs around 15 points to reach my theoretical cut line, and they've been earning goodwill in the community by serving as GM and assistant TD, organizing several leagues, and being a generally nice person in the community. If Sabi is able to put themselves in good position in their games, I think they may have the opportunity to cash in on some of this goodwill at the end of the season.
Brian, this is a great pick. Sabi was the 2021 BDL GM of the Year. Sabi runs every tournament under the sun. Sabi is currently in the Nexus semifinals for Season 7, which won't count for this season, but it says something about their ability. I think the only stumbling block here, Bryan, is how sure are you that they won't end up being the tournament director before all is said and done at Cascadia?
It could happen. For my final pick, I am taking a pick that could earn me a ton of points or tank my season. There's no middle ground when you pick Tommy the Tornado Anderson as one of your picks to qualify for the DBNI. As I always say, go big or go home, Zach.
Bryan, I love this pick if it's the month of March. Tommy Anderson is a fantastic player, and he's the most reliable guy in the world until the moment you absolutely need him to be. Tommy was the 2021 VDL Insomniac of the Year, and I expect him to sleep through this entire tournament.
I hope you are wrong. But for now, it is time for us to take a look at our Eddie Bursan Rookie Watch. And raising awareness about the game of diplomacy and growing the hobby are the primary goals of the Diplomacy Broadcast Network. At the end of this season, the first season player with the highest score will receive the Eddie Bursan Rookie of the Year Award.
And the clubhouse leader for the Eddie Bursan Rookie of the Year Award is VDL champion Nicolas Tallet. He has taken control of this award and will not be caught. Congratulations, Nicolas. This one is in the bag.
I'm not so sure that it's as much a lock as you say, Zach. If Johnny Gillum wins Cascadia, I think he has an outside chance to take over as Rookie of the Year. A lot will come down to the size of Cascadia event, whether Nicola plays at that event, and perhaps if the event is an automatic invitation. But there's a lot of ifs in that statement, so I agree. It is likely that Nicola's impressive performance in the VDL did win him this award. But in the words of Lenny Kravitz, baby, it ain't over until it's over. And that is likely the first and last time you'll ever hear me quote Lenny Kravitz.
Let's hope.
Well, we've been talking a ton about Cascadia throughout this show because, like last year, our final standings will be determined by what happens at this event. Let's take a closer look at it right now.
Well, here it is, the upcoming DBNI events. Cascadia, the big one, originally scheduled as a face-to-face event in Vancouver, but has been redesignated as virtual because the organizers remembered that Canada is cold in January. So this is your opportunity. You've been stating your case all year, compiling the points. Virtual Cascadia is your closing arguments for why you belong in the DBNI Top 28. Don't miss it.
Well, February 18th to 20th is the DBNI semis, our top 28. So far this season, 321 players have competed on 301 boards at 17 qualifying events. The season will reach its conclusion at the 2022 DBNI Invitational Tournament, where the top 28 diplomacy players of the season will be invited to compete for the Calamar Cup and the title of DBNI Diplomat of the Year. If you are not one of the lucky ones to qualify, you can still watch coverage right here on DBN.
And finally, the DBNI Championship, the big game. Clear your schedule, add it to your GCal, reschedule your wedding, whatever you've got to do, you won't want to miss the biggest virtual diplomacy game of the year. It is going to be fantastic.
Zach, that brings our show to a close. What are your thoughts about the season so far? What will you be watching for the rest of the season?
Here's what I'm looking at, Bryan. I'm expecting some goofiness in late January. Somebody is going to sneak into the DBNI tournament through the back door that is Cascadia, and I can't wait to find out who. This was the month that the hammer really dropped. VDL, Press League, VDC. At this point, if you don't have at least one excellent tournament result under your belt, you aren't sniffing the top 28, which is exactly as it should be.
Well, I would like to thank everyone for watching our show tonight. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, please contact us on Twitter at DiploBN or email us at info@diplobn.com. If you enjoyed the show, please like the video, click the subscribe button, tell us your thoughts, and make your own predictions in the comments. This helps YouTube prioritize these videos and might help someone new discover the game that we love so much. As always, we hope to see you on a diplomacy board soon.